Demon AI. Demon AI.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I want to start today with a bit of a pulse check on your internet habits. So I want you to picture this scenario. It is late, you are tired, you're doing the doom scroll on social media.
Oh, boy.
Right? So Twitter, YouTube, TikTok,
Yeah.
just pick your poison. And you scroll past a video. The thumbnail is this close-up of a guy looking absolutely furious, veins popping out of his neck. And the caption is in all caps.
I can already see it.
It screams something like, famous psychologist destroys college student in debate. Or maybe it's politician OBNS reporter with one sentence. You know the exact genre I'm talking about, right?
Oh, vividly. It is basically the gladiator sport of the modern internet. It is never, two people have a respectful, nuanced disagreement about tax policy. It's always eviscerated or humiliated or nuked.
Wipe the floor with.
Exactly, wipe the floor with. That is the entire hook.
Right. And here is the confession, and I think I speak for you and a lot of people listening here. I click on them.
Of course you do. We all do.
Even though I know it is clickbait, there is this, this primal part of my lizard brain that wants to see the fireworks. I want to see the destruction. But today, we are going to try and rewire that instinct.
Yes, we are.
We are unpacking a really fascinating article by Jim Bradley. It's titled The Illusion of Winning: How Authority Masquerades as Truth. And honestly, before we even get to the meat of the argument, we have to talk about Bradley himself.
Yeah.
Because his bio is, well, it's a journey.
It really is a journey. Usually on a deep dive, we are dealing with Ivy League professors or data scientists, maybe tech journalists. But Jim Bradley lists his credentials as pastor, theologian, musician, author, nerd, and then just casually thrown in there at the very end, exorcist.
Wait, hold on. Actual exorcist.
And that's what it says.
Like head-spinning, pea soup exorcist.
That is exactly what the bio says. He doesn't really elaborate much on the specifics of that in this particular article, but he lists it right there, right next to nerd.
Okay, that is definitely a deep dive first. But weirdly, I feel like that specific mixed theology, nerd culture, and dealing with demons is actually the perfect background for what we are discussing today.
It makes a lot of sense when you get into it.
Because we aren't talking about literal ghosts. We are talking about how people fake authority. We are talking about the demons of rhetoric, in a way.
That is a great way to frame it. Bradley is coming at this from the perspective of someone who studies how truth is constructed versus how it is performed. His central premise is that there is a massive and quite dangerous gap between sounding right and actually being right.
Which is everywhere now.
Everywhere. We live in a world where confidence is often mistaken for competence, and where the sheer volume of your voice matters a lot more than the validity of your facts.
So if we look at the mission for today's deep dive, are we basically trying to build a defense system for you, the listener?
Exactly. We want to help you build a nonsense filter, or a BS detector, to be blunt. By the end of this conversation, we want you to be able to watch a debate, or hear a CEO speak, or listen to a politician, and instantly spot when they are using a mask of authority to hide the fact that they don't actually have a good argument.
I love that. A BS detector is something we could all definitely use, especially in an election year or just generally existing online. So let's jump right into the story that kicks this whole article off. Bradley starts with that exact scenario we just mentioned, the viral debate clip.
Right. So Bradley recounts coming across a video of a very famous, very popular psychologist debating a young man. He actually doesn't name the psychologist, but if you spend any time on YouTube, you can probably conjure up an archetype.
Oh, absolutely.
The caption promised a destruction. It promised that this intellectual giant was going to absolutely dismantle this kid. So Bradley clicks play, fully expecting to see a master at work. He is expecting a logical slam dunk.
Was it a bloodbath? Did the kid actually get destroyed?
Well, that is the twist. Bradley watches it, and he realizes the reality on the screen is completely at odds with the caption. The young man was apparently very calm. He was asking specific, hard questions. He was pressing for clarity. And the psychologist, he didn't look like a winner at all. He looked flustered. He was getting angry. He was raising his voice.
But playing devil's advocate here for a second, if the expert is flustered and the kid is calm, how does that get spun as a win? Usually, if you lose your cool in a debate, you lose the debate. That is like rule number one.
And that right there is where the illusion comes in. Bradley points out that the psychologist wasn't answering the questions. Instead, he was focusing on deconstructing the questions themselves.
Deconstructing them.
Yes. He started using these massive multisyllabic academic words, to critique the premise of what the young man was asking rather than just answering him.
I have definitely seen this move. It is the, let me analyze why you were even asking that tactic. It's where someone uses language so complex that you feel like you should agree with them just to avoid looking stupid.
Precisely. It is an intimidation tactic. It shifts the ground entirely. But here is the kicker, and this is why these videos go viral. The clip ended right after the psychologist's big, angry, jargon-filled rant.
So we never got to hear the kid's response.
No, and that is the power of the edit. By cutting the video right there, the creator preserved the illusion that the psychologist had won simply by having the last, loudest word.
Wow.
But Bradley argues it wasn't a win at all. It was, in his words, a masterclass in how to use academics and prestige in a moment of defensiveness.
That is such a heavy phrase. Academics as a mask for defensiveness. It is basically like saying, I can't beat your logic, so I'm going to beat you with my resume and my vocabulary.
It is pure deflection. And once you see it, you really can't unsee it.
Well, let's make sure we can all see it clearly. Bradley actually breaks down the specific playbook, the step-by-step tactics that people use to fake a win. And he notes that this isn't just internet trolls doing this. This happens with theologians, Bible scholars, philosophers, and certainly politicians.
Yes, these are universal tools for the insecure expert.
Okay, let's unpack this playbook. If I am in an argument, say at a dinner party, and I realize I am dead wrong, but I have way too much pride to admit it, what do I do? What is tactic number one?
Tactic number one is what Bradley calls linguistic armor.
Linguistic armor. It sounds cool, but I assume it is incredibly annoying to deal with.
Extremely annoying. It is the strategic use of big words to make a fragile opinion look secure. Think of it like building a fortress of syllables around a bad idea.
Right.
If I say, I don't like this movie because it's boring, that is very easy to attack. You can just say, well, I wasn't bored. But if I say, this film fails to synthesize the meta-narrative cohesiveness required for a post-structuralist critique of the genre.
Okay, yeah. I completely just zoned out. And now I don't even know how to argue with you because I am too busy trying to figure out what meta-narrative cohesiveness even means. I feel like if I disagree, I am basically admitting I am not smart enough to understand the sentence.
Exactly. That is the trap. It creates distance. It signals to the room, I am up here on the intellectual high ground, and you are down there in the mud.
Wow.
It forces the opponent to either decode your nonsense, which takes a lot of time and mental energy, or just nod along to save face.
It's intimidation by thesaurus.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been in corporate meetings where this happens constantly. Someone asks a simple question about why sales are down, and the response is 5 minutes of buzzwords about synergistic operational runways and holistic brand friction.
Oh, corporate speak is full of this. And usually the person using the most buzzwords is the one trying to hide that they haven't done the actual work.
Definitely.
But linguistic armor is just the defense. It protects you. Tactic 2 and 3 are the offense. This is where it gets aggressive.
The attack phase.
Right. Bradley mentions seasoning your reply with direct insults. That is the obvious one, just calling someone names. But there is a much more subtle version, which is tactic 3, framing the opponent as an idiot.
How is framing them as an idiot different from just calling them an idiot?
Calling someone an idiot is crude. It looks bad on you. Framing them as an idiot is a performance. It involves the body language. It's the eye roll. It's that heavy sigh.
Oh, I know that sigh.
Right, the scoff. It is starting your sentence with, well, clearly if you had done the basic reading, or, I can't believe I have to explain this to you.
Ouch. Yeah, that cuts a lot deeper. It's almost gaslighting.
It is entirely dismissive. It treats their very valid question as if it is completely beneath you. The goal here is very specific. If you can successfully frame the opponent as incompetent, you don't actually have to answer their argument. You have dismissed the source, so you don't have to deal with the substance.
It is a get-out-of-jail-free card for your ego. You just escape the burden of proof entirely. Okay, so we have big words to hide behind and insults to push people away. What is next?
Tactic number 4 is the sweeping generalization. Bradley highlights phrases like 99% of scholars agree with me, or the ultimate conversation stopper, I've read everything there is to say on this topic.
Oh, the I've read everything line is a huge red flag for me. Nobody has read everything. Even if you read a book a day for your whole life, you haven't read everything.
No, and even if they had, it doesn't mean they understood it correctly. But think about the function of that statement in a debate. It claims omniscience. If I tell you I've read everything, I am telling you that there is absolutely no room for your input. I have already considered every possibility and rejected yours.
It shuts down the possibility of dialogue. It turns a conversation into a lecture. Just sit down, student, the master is speaking.
Exactly. It is a power move designed to make the other person feel small. But all of these, the big words, the insults, the sweeping claims, they all serve the final and most important tactic. Tactic number 5, the confidence game.
The confidence game. This feels like the boss level. Break that down for us.
Bradley writes that the ultimate goal is to make everything you're saying sound so secure and authoritative that your audience is won over by the fact that you are convinced you are right, rather than the actual words you are saying.
That is terrifyingly accurate. We buy the confidence, not the argument. If you scream it loud enough or say it sternly enough, our brains just default to assuming it must be true.
There is actually deep evolutionary psychology behind this. We are social creatures. When we see a leader or an expert projecting absolute certainty, our instincts say, follow that person. They know the way to the water source. They know how to run from the lion.
That makes total sense.
Uncertainty looks like weakness to that primal part of our brain. Nuance looks like confusion. So the person who fakes certainty wins the crowd.
So you haven't proven anything. You've just outperformed the other person. You have acted the part of the winner so well that the audience applauds the performance.
That is the very definition of the illusion of winning.
Now, this is where the article took a turn I really wasn't expecting. Because when I think of these tactics, bullying, name-calling, claiming to be the smartest person in the room, I think of modern internet personalities, I think of cable news pundits. But Bradley goes back 500 years. He brings up Martin Luther.
Yeah, this is a really nuanced part of the article. We need to be clear here. Bradley is a Protestant. He values the Reformation. He respects what Martin Luther achieved historically in breaking away from the established church. But he says reading Luther's actual rhetoric, his letters, his debates, was startling and troubling.
Yeah, he says he watched Luther tear theologians apart and make them look like the dumbest people who ever lived.
I think we tend to romanticize historical figures. We imagine them having these polite, high-minded debates in dusty libraries. But Luther was not that.
Not even close. Bradley notes that Luther would often claim his opponents had no scriptural grounding whatsoever, even when they were citing many, many passages. Luther wouldn't just disagree, he would steamroll them.
Just crush them.
Right. He would basically say, you are an idiot, you are blind, and I am the only one who sees the truth.
Why did that work? I mean, if someone did that today, well, actually, if someone did that today, they'd only get 1 million views. But why was it so effective for the Reformation? You have to look at the environment of the time. Bradley points out that this was a world where the average person didn't have the tools to do their own theological investigation. Literacy was low, Bibles were rare, they were expensive, and often they were in Latin.
Right. You couldn't just hop on Google.
Exactly. You couldn't open a Bible app to fact-check Luther's Greek translation.
So if you can't check the facts yourself,
You follow the guy who sounds the most sure of himself. If Luther is screaming with absolute certainty that these other guys are corrupt fools and he is the only one who knows the truth, his confidence becomes your evidence.
might as well follow the guy who sounds sure that he's right. That is the exact quote from the article. It really highlights how dangerous this confidence game is. It can shape history. It can start entire movements.
And it connects directly to the present day. We might have more access to information now than Luther's audience did. I mean, we all have the internet in our pockets, but do we use it? Or are we still just drawn to the person who shouts the loudest?
That brings us to the modern application. Bradley pivots from the Reformation to modern politics. And look, we aren't here to take sides. Red, blue, left, right. The article is observing the mechanism of rhetoric that, frankly, both sides use all the time.
Exactly. Bradley observes that many modern political situations arise because leaders use these exact same tactics. The president, political candidates, party leaders, they know that people naturally gravitate toward leaders who say what the audience wants to hear and say it in the most absolute way possible.
The most absolute way possible. That's the key, isn't it? Nuance doesn't get votes.
Nuance is seen as weakness. If a leader says, well, the economy is a complex system with global variables and this policy might have a 60% chance of improving things over 10 years, they look unsure.
Yeah, nobody's cheering for a 60% chance over 10 years.
Right. But if they say, I alone can fix it, and the other side is destroying the country, that projects strength. It is the illusion of winning applied to running a nation.
Bradley also mentioned something about fire here. He says the support for these leaders burns ever hotter when they do something very specific.
When they openly insult the same opponents the audience has. This is so crucial for understanding the psychology here. It is not just about the leader being confident. It is about the leader being a weapon against the people you dislike.
It's tribal. It is the whole my enemy's enemy is my friend dynamic.
It is purely tribal. When a leader uses those tactics, the insults, framing the opponent as an idiot, it releases dopamine in their base. It feels like a victory. Yeah, he really told them. It's incredibly cathartic.
So we are cheering for the destruction of the other side, just like in that viral video caption. We aren't checking if the policy is good. We're just happy our guy owned the other guy.
Precisely. It satisfies a primal urge for dominance. But Bradley's point is that this is empty. It's a sugar rush. It is not truth. It is just authority masquerading as truth. And eventually the sugar rush wears off, and you're left with the consequences of following someone who is just pretending to know the way.
So this paints a pretty bleak picture. We have psychologists faking wins, historical figures bulldozing opponents, and politicians using insults as policy. If this is the illusion of winning, what is the alternative? Because nobody wants to be a doormat. How do we actually win, or at least how do we engage meaningfully without becoming a toxic bully?
Bradley offers a prescription. He calls it the Kingdom of Heaven way, but honestly, these principles apply to anyone who wants to have integrity in communication, regardless of their faith or background. He breaks it down into 3 components.
Okay, let's hear them. What is component number 1?
Component number 1 is character, specifically leading with character. This means operating with a set of values that isn't just about self-preservation. It is asking yourself, who am I becoming by arguing this way? If you win the argument, but lose your integrity if you have to lie or bully or deceive to win, you have lost.
It reminds me of that saying, don't wrestle with a pig. You both get dirty and the pig likes it.
Yeah.
Character is deciding not to get in the mud in the first place.
Okay.
So character comes first. What is the second one?
Conviction. But there is a massive distinction here. He talks about arguing with the conviction of the Holy Spirit, or for a general audience, let's call it internal conviction.
How does that differ from the confidence game we just talked about?
Yeah.
Because Luther had conviction, right? The angry psychologist had conviction. They seem pretty convinced.
That is a great question. The difference lies in the source of the conviction. The confidence game is external bluster. It's loud, it's performative, it's defensive. It needs an audience to validate it. It is inherently insecure. True conviction is internal. It is about being grounded in truth. It doesn't need to shout to be true.
I see. It is the difference between a tree that is deeply rooted and withstands the wind versus a billboard that is just propped up to look big. The billboard needs to be flashy to get attention. The tree just is.
I really love that analogy. Real conviction doesn't need to insult you to make a point. It can afford to be quiet because it knows it is right. It is not threatened by questions. Which leads directly to the third, and honestly the most difficult component, humility.
Humility. Basically the complete opposite of the destroy and own culture.
It really is the antidote. Bradley says if we are to do any of this well, it must be with humility and not with pride. The illusion of winning is entirely about pride. It is about saying, I am smart, you are dumb, I am the winner, you are the loser.
Humility requires admitting you might not know everything. It requires actually listening. That feels very vulnerable, especially in a debate.
It is vulnerable, and that is why it is so much harder than the quick win of an insult. If you are humble, you can't use the I've read everything tactic. You can't use the linguistic armor to hide your insecurities. You have to let your arguments stand on their own merit, naked, without the special effects of anger and arrogance.
It sounds like humility is the only way to actually reach the truth. The illusion is about covering up weakness. Humility is about revealing the truth, even if it is messy.
Exactly.
Right.
And in the long run, substance wins. The illusion eventually fades. We look back at that video of the psychologist, and once the adrenaline wears off, we realize he didn't say anything meaningful. But truth, spoken with character and humility, that tends to stick. It builds things that actually last.
So to bring this all together, we started with a scrolling thumb and a clickbait headline. We've gone through the tactics of fake authority, the big words, the insults, the sweeping generalizations. We've seen how Martin Luther used it to change history and how modern leaders use it to get votes.
And we've landed on the core idea that real authority doesn't need a mask.
That is a powerful takeaway. So the next time you are watching a debate or listening to an expert or even sitting in a meeting at work, what should you be looking for? Give us one final tool for the road.
I want to leave you with a challenge. Next time you feel yourself getting swept up by a speaker, whether it is a politician you love or a debater you admire, just pause and ask yourself this question. Am I listening to the evidence, or am I being seduced by the confidence?
That is the test.
Strip away the tone. Strip away the insults. Strip away the I am the expert posturing. Look at the naked argument. If the speaker wasn't shouting, would you still believe them? If they weren't insulting the person you hate, Would their point still make sense?
That is the ultimate test. It is about separating the signal from the noise. And trust me, there is a whole lot of noise out there right now.
A lot of noise. But
Yeah.
if you have your BS detector turned on, if you can look past the performance, you can find the signal.
I think that is a perfect place to leave it. Jam and Bradley's article, The Illusion of Winning, is definitely worth a read if you want to dive deeper into his nerd theologian perspective.
Highly recommend it.
Thanks for deep diving with us today. Stay curious, stay critical, and please don't let anyone destroy you with authorities. We'll see you next time.
Echoes of confidence and gilded halls, words dressed up like armor. Prestige parades with a silent call, truth buried deeper than fractured armor. A mass stitched from syllables that ring, triumph by volume, not clarity. Authority smiles, but what voice does it bring? A mirror reflecting someone else's disparity. When victory's only measured by how loud you shout, the wisest whispers fade and nuance gets drowned out. Illusion within, authority wears true skin, but behind the crown and grinning lies the hollow of a story thin. Echoes when not missing. The crowd applauds the confident charade. Big words mask nothing real, like a sundial in midnight shade. Policy meets pride with zeal. Rhetoric throws shadows tall, while substance shrinks unseen. Prestige becomes the king of all, and nuance slips between. Under the gloss of certainty lie silent questions never asked, and in the echo chamber's symphony, truth is the uninvited task. So let the loudest voice be still, and let discernment light the hall. For winning's not the same as real when truth is masked. Pride takes all.